POD, or Payable on Death designation. Let's talk about why it's so important and what are some of the things you need to know about a POD designation, about some of the questions you need to ask your bank, or what's the process or what kind of information you need to add a POD, to add a beneficiary to your bank accounts. It is important, of course, that you have beneficiaries on all type of other accounts, on your retirement, life insurance, and all that, not just primary, but also secondary. But bank accounts have a special way of doing things. It's called a POD, Payable on Death. You usually have to walk in the bank and sign some forms in order to add someone. But if you don't have a POD on your bank account and you pass, that account sometimes has to be probated, especially if it has a very large amount. You may say, well, I don't have a lot of cash in my bank accounts anyway. You never know what happens. You may just have sold a house or inherited some money or had a big deposit and something happens. You want to make sure that you make it as easy as possible for your family to access that bank account. Again, this is a POD designation, Payable on Death. By adding a beneficiary, that way you are not allowing them to have access during your lifetime. So you want to make other arrangements for that. Be sure to watch our other educational videos, sign up to our, subscribe to our YouTube channel. There is a link or a button there below, and learn more about the other options for lifetime benefits. So I'm sharing my screen for this second part of the video because I want you to see exactly from a bank's website, the kind of information they need, how it works with a POD. And I picked Bank of America for no particular reason other than it is nationwide. They have branches everywhere, but I am sure that, well, most of banks will likely have some kind of information, or if not online, I'm sure they'll be happy to provide you with paper flyers and more guidance on how to list the POD and what kind of information they need. So let's look together over some of this stuff and talk about it, just in case there's something that you may not understand. What is a Payable on Death beneficiary? As we talked about, it could be an individual, it could be a group of individuals. You have 3 kids, list the 3 of them. It could be a nonprofit if you want to make a gift after death, a company, anyone. A trust, if you have a revocable trust, can absolutely be a beneficiary. And we have other educational videos again on why should you pick one over the other, a trust or an individual, or if you have 3 kids, who you should pick, and so on. It cannot be the co-owner because the co-owner usually automatically gets it anyway, right? If you have joint tenancy on a bank account, if one dies, the other one gets it. The POD is for when both or all owners of the bank account pass. Who can be a POD? Again, any person, a group of persons, any nonprofits. What information do I need to add a POD beneficiary? For an individual, you provide first name, last name, date of birth, and sometimes the social security number is needed, because if your beneficiary has a common name, Nicole Smith, they can be a million people there. The bank wants to make sure that they pay the right person, and also it may be for tax purposes. If it's a nonprofit, you may need their EIN. The bank again will help you find that information, or if you have a gift in mind for a nonprofit, the nonprofit will provide you with their EIN. That's something that you wouldn't know otherwise unless you ask. Can you have multiple beneficiaries? Yes, you can. I strongly encourage you, if you have 3 kids, to list the 3 kids unless you want just one of them. But don't list just one thinking that they're going to share with the other ones, or don't list one beneficiary thinking that they're just going to pay your funeral and your taxes, because once you have a POD, they just get a check. The bank is not going to say, make sure you pay your parents or the owner taxes and debt and things. They don't have to. Sometimes it works just fine, and they do, but sometimes it doesn't. So don't list anyone else other than the intended beneficiaries on your bank account. For example, if you have minor kids, you may want to get a trust in place and list that trust as a beneficiary, as opposed to list your sister thinking that she will take the kids, because she may not. And then what? That money will stay in her side of the family. What type of accounts can have PODs? This is important. Checking, savings, deposit, CDs, IRAs, basically any type of financial account usually has a beneficiary designation. The only one that I can think of that does not or may not Usually pension plans terminate either with the owner or with the owner's spouse. So that might be a benefit where you cannot have alternate beneficiaries, but that's ask. You never know. Just ask. Can I have one beneficiary? Can I have two, as in primary and alternate? Can I have my 3 kids? Can I have my 15 grandkids as beneficiaries? Make sure you ask. Have in mind, you're paying all these people. You're paying your bank. You're paying your IRA. They're making money off of you. So don't be afraid to take your time and make sure you fully understand what options you have and how it works. How do I change my beneficiaries or add a new one? Usually when you set up the account, you'll learn the process. So usually there's another form you have to sign to change or remove someone as a beneficiary. With a POD, it's easy because the account is still yours and you're just adding beneficiaries. As opposed to adding a child to the bank account, then if as a joint owner, again, we have lots of videos on this, as a joint owner, you have to have that joint owner's approval before you make changes. So this is a good point. If you have a joint owner right now, have in mind that the bank will usually require that both owners are present in order to even list PODs or make any changes to the bank account. When does the POD receive the funds? A POD can request a share. It says at the time of the passing of the last owner, proof of death and a beneficiary letter instructions are required. It doesn't happen immediately, so grandma died today, you can go to the bank tomorrow and get the money, even if you are listed as a POD, because the bank will read proof of death, which is a death certificate. Sometimes a death certificate can take 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes even longer. So they will not pay you. I'm going to say all of the banks, none of them will pay you if you don't have a death certificate, because how can they know that the person is indeed deceased? And you have to sign some forms that they'll provide you with. What happens if the account is overdrawn when the owner passes away? If the account is overdrawn when the owner passes away, no funds pass to the POD. The POD will not be asked to pay back the funds. So if you are listed on an overdrawn account, you don't have to pay what the person owned before. There's just nothing there for you. What if all POD beneficiaries pass away before the last owner dies? If the POD passes away, the account owner should update the POD. If they don't, it will likely have to be probated. Again, it depends on the law. In Oklahoma, if it's under $50,000, sometimes you can collect it with a small estate affidavit. If it's over $50,000, you will likely have to probate it, go through the courts, and then collect it that way. How do I find my beneficiary? If you can find your account beneficiary on the name and address line on the monthly and quarterly statement. This basically says that you probably have on your statement or somewhere, if you log in online, you can see if you have PODs on your accounts. If you cannot see that, or you're not sure you're reading your statement properly, be sure to just walk in the bank. If you have online banking like USAA, give them a call. Yes, it may take you a few hours, who knows, on the phone, but it's time well spent, because you want to make sure that that bank account has beneficiaries and that it'll go to the right beneficiaries, not maybe someone who you have listed 10 years ago. I hope this video helped, and I hope it encourages you to go and check on your beneficiaries and update or list a new PODs if you don't have any. Do the same with your other type of accounts. It is very important. It's very easy for your family. Also, have a plan in place that if something does happen to you, you become incapacitated, or when you die, people will know where these accounts are located. It is really hard sometimes to try and find these accounts, especially if we use 5 different bank accounts and we have investment accounts in different places, different IRAs from previous jobs, and so on. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notifications when new videos are posted, and thank you for watching.